the former government, former premier, there was no movement, there was no support.
Tonight, more reaction to the money pledged towards searching a Winnipeg area landfill.
I told her, I want you first to go and talk to them, because it's going to be a very, very sad day when you go there the first time and take their children away.
A class action brought by Inuit and those living off reserve in Quebec alleges abuse in the youth protection system.
It's unfathomable that this is happening and that again and again.
And an Edmonton police officer will not face private prosecution in the beating of an Indigenous man. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The chief of Long Plain First Nation says she believes the incoming the families calling for a search of the landfills now have a partner in the incoming provincial government. On Wednesday, there was finally some movement in the long-awaited search for the remains of at least 2 First Nations women believed to be in a landfill north of Winnipeg.
Look,
the federal government says they'll commit $740,000 to the Long Plain First Nation, where both women are from. The money will go towards training personnel in how to search the landfill and manage hazardous waste. Earlier this year, another study concluded that a search was feasible, but the progressive Conservative provincial government wouldn't support it. The newly elected NDP says it's important to try. Kyra Wilson is the chief of the Long Plain First Nation.
With the former government, former premier, there was no movement, there was no support, which was unfortunate, and it was disheartening to have to deal with that. But what we do see with the new government, new premier, is they're willing to come to the table. They're willing to have those discussions. They're willing to bring forward solutions. And that's all we need, is we need somebody that's willing to collaborate and work together. And so I do see that with the NDP government.
In Saskatoon, the 17th annual Sisters in Spirit Walk took place on October 4th in conjunction with several similar vigils across the country. Iskwewuk, a Witchy Widow Check, has been organizing the local Sisters in Spirit vigils since 2006 to support the families of Indigenous peoples who have lost a loved one. The walk started off with a flag raising and proclamation to help reassure families with missing or murdered loved ones that their family members are not forgotten. Group co-founder Darlene Okimesim Sikati says the search the landfills issue in Manitoba is important for groups like hers.
To bring that awareness, remembrance, and support of the families that are going through a missing and murdered Indigenous loved one, and especially in particular with the Search the Landfills conversation and experiences that are going on in Manitoba, and stories of successful searches in other landfills, that it was only right for Saskatchewan and Saskatoon to participate by being an ally and support to those families in Manitoba.
To Alberta now, where the Crown Prosecution Service will not allow a private prosecution against an Edmonton police officer in an assault case against then 18-year-old Pacey Dumas. Dumas was kicked in the head by Constable Ben Todd in 2020, forcing him to have surgery to relieve pressure in his brain. In April, the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service declined to file criminal charges against the officer, even though the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team report indicated excessive force charges could be laid. Now the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service says the incident does not have a reasonable likelihood of prosecution. Heather Stanke is Pacey Dumas' lawyer.
It's unfathomable that this is happening and that again and again the Crown is comfortable not putting this into a court of law. Let a judge decide.
What was supposed to be a business venture for a Whitehorse couple has now become a nightmare. A popular downtown bakery may be closing its doors forever because of its close proximity to an emergency shelter. As Sarah Connors tells us, the bakery's owners are calling for action.
This security camera footage shows people doing drugs outside of Alpine Bakery in downtown Whitehorse. Located just a few doors down from the Whitehorse emergency shelter, scenes like this are a round-the-clock occurrence. Now, the bakery's owners say they've had enough.
So shelter affects us in a business-ruining way.
After 7 years in business, Walter and Sylvia Streit are temporarily closing their beloved bakery. The couple bought the business before the shelter opened in 2017. They say disturbances caused by the shelter clientele are scaring customers away.
Several times there's a lot of drug dealing on ours, so illegal actions, trespassing. If somebody doesn't find a toilet, he goes behind the fence or whatever.
They were sleeping on just a piece of cardboard, and the shelter is right there. You can actually probably
Wayne Emery lives near the shelter. He says shelter users are sleeping on his property because it's too dangerous to stay there. Now considered a low barrier shelter, he thinks it needs to return to a high barrier shelter in order to help address the situation.
You know, oh, what do we do? What do we do? And all they're doing is study after study. Go back to high barrier. Go back to what it was originally supposed to be. And I think it would at least help.
Nonprofit Connective took over daily operations of the shelter from Yukon government last October. The organization declined an in-person interview, but said in a statement, "We know that these issues have been going on for many years, and we understand the frustration of local businesses and residents. We are committed to continuing to work with our partners to explore solutions to community safety issues as well as opportunities to add to the housing continuum to better serve the many different needs of people experiencing homelessness." The Streits would like to see more police patrols and the shelter services move to different parts of the city away from the downtown core. They're hopeful the temporary closure will send a message to Yukon government, which continues to fund the shelter, that action is needed. The owners have since met with Premier Ranj Pillay to discuss the situation. They say he's personally pledged to solve the problem. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Still in the north, the federal government and the Kikitani Inuit Association this week announced almost $30 million for housing in northern Nunavut. According to the association's president, it's a sign of intergovernmental cooperation, working toward a common goal. Trevor Wright has more.
This week, the Kikitani Inuit Association and the federal government announced nearly $30 million in new funding to go toward housing in Grise Fjord, Arctic Bay, Clyde River, Pond Inlet, and Resolute Bay. It occurred during the association's annual general meeting in Iqaluit, Nunavut. The investment is part of a larger funding pot announced for Nunavut housing to Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated during Budget 2022.
But we also have $154 million that will cover the whole region. So our goal as QIA is to ensure that we represent each and every one of the communities on these important projects that will affect our people in the long run.
The funding announcement is one part of a territory-wide push by multiple levels of government tackling the housing crisis.
You know, as the Premier said that the housing is a priority for the government, and this is us too is a priority for us to ensure that the people in Baffin Island have an adequate place. You know, it's not going to cover everything, but that will help a lot in the long run.
In recent years, Inuit organizations have had more direct involvement in housing, says Akasok.
In the past, this was not done by QIA, but now the money is flowing in through ITK, through NTI, Alukikutik, and her team, and then it gives us a chance to strategize what we could do with the money that we're receiving.
Trevor Wright, APTN National News, calorie.
Time for a quick break, but still to come, we'll hear from residential school survivor Norman Kistevish. Stay with us. Welcome back. Over the past few years, a residential school survivor from Quebec has been sharing his harrowing story as a way to not only heal himself, but also to help others. Maricela Amador has more.
Norman Kistevish is a survivor of the Saint-Marc-de-Figuerie residential school. Recently, he was a speaker at the national gathering for unmarked graves held in Montreal. Kistevish recounted that he actually wanted to go to residential school because he wanted to join his older brother, unaware of the horrors that awaited him. He was just 7 years old.
Première journée que je suis rentré, j'avais faim, j'avais aux alentours de 3 heures, 4 heures. J'avais tellement faim quand le souper est arrivé, j'ai mangé comme un défoncé.
Then he got sick. Kistevish said he was in so much pain that he passed out.
J'ai tombé sans connaissance, puis le frère qui m'a ramassé par le chignon du cou, l'arrière, puis levé de même, j'étais sans connaissance, là, puis garoche à terre, ouais, debout, puis suivre.
It was his brother who told him what had happened after he woke up in the infirmary. He said that is when the abuse began.
L'histoire du Canada, j'ai appris à maillir avec cette histoire-là. C'est toutes des menteries qu'ils nous montraient là. Les abus physiques, les abus sexuels, ça. J'en ai déjà glissé des mots là-dessus. Je ne veux pas revenir là-dessus parce que c'est fait mal, ça.
The St. Mark de Figuerie residential school operated between 1955 and 1973. Kistabish was there for 7 of them.
C'est lui, l'agresseur.
In 1996, Edmund Briard, a priest who worked at the school, was convicted of sexually abusing 6 children. When Kistabish was 9, he was sent to Quebec City to play pee-wee hockey. It was a reprieve for him.
Tout ce que j'aimais faire, c'est sauter sur la patinoire puis il me défoule. J'étais très bon au hockey dans ce temps-là, d'après moi, d'après les autres aussi.
But after being sent back to the school, Kistabish started planning his escape.
Là, j'ai sauté dans le champ puis couru jusqu'à chez nous.
Following his escape from the school, Kistabish said his parents were shocked to see him. They were unaware of the abuse and scolded him for running away.
Ça a été peut-être le pire moment de toute la durée de mon vécu au pensionnat. Devant mes parents, avec mes parents. Je voulais avoir un signe d'affection, puis je ne l'ai pas eu.
That same night, his parents took him back. Kistabish left the school in 1964 at the age of 12. He said that although he started a family and had good paying jobs throughout his life, he struggled with drugs and alcohol.
Les épreuves que j'ai endurées au pensionnat, ça m'a suivi tout le temps, puis je ne me rendais pas compte que c'était ça.
In 2008, Kistabish said he finally began his healing process.
Réapprendre qui je suis, à me connaître mieux, à me dire, à réapprendre à chasser, à pêcher. J'ai tout recommencé, moi.
Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Montreal.
Inuit and off-reserve Indigenous peoples in Quebec took the government to court recently in a class action lawsuit alleging its Department of Youth Protection failed to do their job. Amelia Fournier has that story.
Nunavut has been home to Inuit in northern Quebec since time immemorial. It was one of the last places in Canada to make European contact. The introduction of alcohol and a colonial justice system have separated families since then, according to Lisi Alupa, an Inuit court interpreter based in Quebec.
I have never heard them being offered, we will go with you and support you as you go through the process of healing so you can get your children back. It's just like a tick. Just following their steps. There's no emotion or there's no kind of compassion.
She was close to a couple struggling with alcohol, resulting in them almost losing their children, and recalls calling a representative from the Department of Youth Protection to take preventative measures rather than removing the children immediately.
I told her, I want you first to go and talk to them, because it's going to be a very, very sad day when you go there the first time and take their children away. So the worker said, oh, I never thought of it before.
Fed up with the system that underserves them, a class action lawsuit was started. It was heard in Quebec Superior Court in late September to seek reparations for the unequal treatment of Inuit and off-reserve Indigenous people in Quebec at the hands of the Department of Youth Protection.
We had a bit of a struggle.
Former Senator Charlie Watt says he hopes this class action will draw attention to the plight of Inuit.
If it was totally left alone, it's not going to be known to the world what's happening to the Inuit kids. You know, why are they taking their lives so much?
Despite his decades of advocacy for Inuit,
and that's me during the hippie time,
Watt says youth are still being separated from their parents into the foster system, a trauma that exacerbates the high addiction rates in Nunavut.
When they become 18 years of age, they just throw them out of the door, and they're on their own. So they're not getting any counseling, they're not getting any help whatsoever, let alone that their parents or single parents have gone through a trauma in regards to the fact that the kids are being taken away.
In 2018, the Viens Commission reported that 1 in 3 youth in Nunavut would come into contact with child protection services at some point in their lives. And suicide rates are 10 times that of the rest of Canada, largely driven by people under the age of 25. Watt is grateful to lawyers like Louis Coupal, who have been working on the suit against the Attorney General of Quebec and of Canada. Despite the remoteness of the region, Coupal says the Quebec government has no excuse to underserve Nunavut.
c'est au Québec, et le Québec a fait un choix de société d'accueillir ces populations-là, ou du moins de se joindre à ces populations-là et de vivre ensemble. Alors, il n'y a aucune raison raisonnable qui permette d'offrir ou de justifier qu'un service de manière inégale soit offert aux membres des populations visées.
A decision isn't expected for another year. But Alupa hopes that no matter the outcome, the class action will spark change.
What I hope for is that they will do as it was said, like doing prevention before taking the children.
Emilia Fournier, APTN National News, Quebec, Quebec.
Coming up after the break, a look at tonight's season premiere of Nation to Nation and tomorrow's new episode of APTN Investigates. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. This from an autumn drive down Highway 17 near Onion Lake, Saskatchewan. Thanks to Credence Grace for sharing this colorful photo. If you want to be featured as our photo of the day, you can email your pictures to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 23 for Halifax and Charlottetown. 10 with showers in Quebec, 17 and partly cloudy in Nain. 25 with showers in Montreal, 16 and rain in Chibougamau. 16 with showers in Sault Ste. Marie, 18 with rain in North Bay. 9 and rain in Thunder Bay, 7 with showers in Sioux Lookout. Showers and 9 for God's Lake, cloudy and 6 for the Paw. 10 with rain in Winnipeg, showers and 6 for Dauphin and Brandon. 8 with rain in Regina, 10 in Saskatoon. 11 in Meadow Lake, 7 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 19 in Peace River and Grand Prairie. Sunny and 21 in Edmonton, sun's out, and 19 for Lethbridge. Sunny and 19 in Vancouver, 21 under the sun in Kamloops. 19 for Prince George, 17 in Smithers. -4 in Old Crow, 10 above for Whitehorse. +2 and snow for Yellowknife, 0 with flurries in Norman Wells. -2 and snow in Sax Harbor, partly cloudy and 2 below in Politac. 0 in Chesterfield, 2 above in Arviette. -5 with snow in Resolute, 3 below and snow in Joe Haven. Okay, over to our Ottawa studio now, where a new season of Nation to Nation is upon us, and Annette Francis is standing by to tell us what's coming up.
After the news, we'll have the first episode of a new season of Nation to Nation. Hill Times columnist Rose LeMay discusses the historic win this week in Manitoba and what it could mean for Indigenous peoples. And she shares her thoughts on a new Stats Canada report that Indigenous women and girls continue to be killed at a rate 6 times higher than their non-Indigenous counterparts.
It says to me that police forces across the country and provincial territorial governments, which are for the most part responsible for those police forces, are not doing, well, anything.
We'll also hear from both the federal ministers of Indigenous Services and Crown Indigenous Relations about their priorities in the House this fall. Stay tuned.
Thanks, Annette. That looks like a pretty good season premiere. Well, APTN Investigates is also returning tomorrow night with an all-new season. In the first of a 2-part series, journalist Kenneth Jackson examines the mystery surrounding the deaths of 2 Mohawk fishermen in 2015. Here's a preview for Secrets of the Bay, Part 1.
So they said, like, we're only going out for like an hour. We'll spear a couple fish.
It was 1 o'clock when they left here.
When I came down the hallway, Robin was hollering, "Tammy, we gotta go, we gotta go. That boy didn't come home last night."
Everybody was looking. I mean, boats were out there. People was dragging with hooks. Cops were up there with helicopter flying. They brought in sonar. And they couldn't find them, so. And they even told us that if it was in there, we'd have found it.
They said they are not in there. They gave me 110% guarantee.
Police kept saying, "Oh, it's drowning, it's a drowning." They were stealing fish, it's a drowning. And we were saying, "No, it's not." Like, those boys wouldn't have been doing that, and they both knew how to swim.
I want the truth. Maddie and Ty deserve justice. They haven't got any justice, and there's no way that they'll be at peace until they do.
Looks good. You can catch Secrets of the Bay Part 1 tomorrow night, immediately following the APTN National News. And you can also hear more from Kenneth Jackson right here tomorrow night on the news. Well, that is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy, thanks for being with us. Stick around. Annette is up next with the season premiere of Nation to Nation. Have a great night.